everyone. This is a special episode of The Healed Trader. Now, I started this podcast, and the whole point of it was to document my journey of becoming more conscious, looking inward, finding my authentic self, and then hopefully that would improve my happiness, my relationships, and my general well-being. But one of the big topics right now is that we all need to think more consciously about is the crisis in Gaza and the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. This has been somewhat of a taboo subject, broadly speaking. And anyone who speaks up about it is often called antisemitic or bitter. But the dehumanization of the Palestinian people is truly concerning, as we witness what can only be called a genocide before our very eyes. I am by no means an expert in the politics of this conflict, but the human being in me can't help but think this has gone too far. I'm joined today in the studio with my friend and human rights advocate, Nathalia. Now, since the 7th of October, she has been actively calling for a ceasefire. And more recently, she began lobbying MPs at the UK Parliament to achieve an end to this aggression. Welcome, Nathalia.
Thank you, Imran.
So tell me, what exactly have you been doing?
So yes, you very well said it. Hello, everyone. You very well said it. Since the conflict began, well, it's not like this conflict just began now, but since the attack from Hamas and Israel on the 7th of October, I realized this was going to go out of hands completely. And privately, so to speak, I started calling for a ceasefire on social media. I'm not a public person, so it was very internal. I do have a page, which is interesting because it's a page which has nothing to do really with anything political. It's about exploration, but I do some humanitarian and human rights advocacy there. And so I started right after the attack happened in Israel. I started just calling everybody to please calm down, to cool down. I started to address even friends of mine who are, they were affected because they are from Israel as well. And they were feeling very frustrated. So I felt that I needed to speak with them, to kind of maintain calm, a calm environment, which unfortunately it didn't happen after all because things went out of control.
Yeah, so what sort of response have you been getting from people then?
So it's a bit of a mix. It's been positive, obviously a lot of support. People are supporting one another. But there have been also some setbacks. There have been some people who are taking this as if it was a football game, which it's the way actually I describe the whole situation in terms of how society is responding to it. It feels like it's a football game where people just take sides. And this is something I am not comfortable with. I am a human rights advocate and I'm a humanitarian, and I will be there for whoever needs it. Innocent people, civilians who have nothing to do with war. So I have had even my social media accounts. I have very low number of followers, which to be honest, I'm fine with that. I don't need a big audience. I just need the right people around. And I did have one actual case of a person based in Germany who was almost booing the fact that I was calling for a ceasefire. So
that's mad to me.
It is mad because you are literally saying that you are pro-war. That's to me what you are saying. And some people might actually take this statement as radical or drastic, but it is as radical as drastic because it's if you are booing a call for a ceasefire, which means both ends stop bombing each other and attacking each other, then are you having fun? Are you enjoying this? So I feel like there is a lot of ignorance as well going on around.
Mm. And so obviously a lot of people have been protesting, and those protests are getting a bit more frequent, but you kind of went the extra mile. You went to this lobbying day at UK Parliament last week, and you wrote a letter to the MPs. And we're going to share that letter today and go through what you actually said. I mean, I thought it was very eloquently put. Obviously, I've read it. So why don't you read that letter for us, and then we can talk a bit more about it.
Just Yeah, okay, let's do that actually. Let's just start reading the letter, but just to give a little bit of kind of like an introduction. Yes, like you very well said, it was a lobbying day. And yes, I participated. I wanted to speak with as many MPs as possible. And I wanted to hand over this letter. So I was able indeed to give it to quite a few key people who I hope they will keep it. So yes, let's go for it.
Go for it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear what you had to say.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to use this opportunity to address all the members of the parliament as well. So I'm going to try to look at the camera.
Right. I hope you're listening, members of parliament. This is for you. Go on, go for it.
So, dear members of the parliament, I'm writing to you today with a heavy heart and a deep sense of urgency regarding the ongoing crisis in Gaza and the ongoing conflict between Hamas and Israel. As members of the parliament entrusted with the responsibility of representing the interests and values of our constituents, I implore you, all the members of the parliament, to heed this call for action in the face of a humanitarian catastrophe that demands our immediate attention. This situation, rooted in historical grievances and territorial disputes, traces its origins back decades. We, as a global community, have borne witness to the devastating consequences of such conflicts, with the scars of 2 world wars, including the horrific atrocities of the Holocaust, serving as stark reminders of the cost of unchecked aggression and intolerance. Yet, despite the commitments made by nations around the world to uphold international humanitarian law, to protect human rights, and pursue peace through the establishment of institutions such as the United Nations, we find ourselves confronted with a stark reality. The current conflict in Gaza and between Hamas and Israel is a blatant violation of these principles. It is a statement to the failure of leadership and the erosion of trust in our political institutions that we stand by as innocent civilians, including women and children, who bear the brunt of violence and suffering. The very essence of our shared humanity is under threat as we witness the erosion of fundamental rights and dignity, regardless of nationality or creed. We are not merely witnessing a regression in progress, but hurtling towards a future defined by unprecedented division, insecurity, and despair. The very notion of safety is under siege, with the prospects of bringing new life into such a world becoming increasingly daunting for many, including myself. A vote against a ceasefire, it's a refusal to act. It's a vote against peace, and a tacit endorsement of continued bloodshed and suffering. Dear members of the parliament, we refuse to have leaders like yourselves who prioritize political expediency over preserving life and pursuing justice. We demand representatives like yourselves to stand on the right side of history and to champion peace and human rights above all else. Furthermore, and this is very important, while we acknowledge the historical support extended to Israel in the aftermath of the Holocaust, it does not absolve it of accountability for its actions today. The systematic violation of international humanitarian law, the blockade of aid, and the indiscriminate targeting of civilians cannot be justified under any circumstances. As a leading nation that we are, we have a moral obligation to hold Israel accountable for its actions and to demand an end to the cycle of violence and oppression. This is not about singling out a particular group, but upholding universal human rights and justice principles for all. Therefore, let us be clear, this is not anti-Semitism, nor do we condone Hamas's violence, and it should never be misconstrued as such. It is instead a rightful demand for a ceasefire from a country that has resorted to monstrous and disproportionate means, using weaponry to inflict mass casualties on innocent civilians and humanitarian workers alike. It is a plea to halt the senseless loss of life, to facilitate the flow of vital aid and food and water and electricity, and to safeguard the basic human rights of Palestinians, including their right to sovereignty. This is also to say Hamas must let go of the hostages as well. It is also a call to ensure that orphaned children are provided with the care and protection they deserve, allowing them the chance to grow up in a world free from the horrors of conflict and oppression. The statistics paint a grim picture of the human toll of this conflict. It's around over 40,000 people killed in Gaza, many of which are children. Children orphaned, families torn apart, and communities decimated by hunger and disease. They are fighting now for food and resources, use of famine as a tool of genocide, and we definitely cannot remain silent in the face of such atrocities. The recent rulings by the International Court of Justice and the findings of UN experts leave no room for ambiguity. This is at risk of genocide. The risk of genocide looms large, and the UK must fulfill its legal obligations to prevent this from going any further. This includes restating the funding that was available to UNRWA and immediately halting the export of weapons to Israel, as little as it is, as little as the UK says it has to stop for good. So the meeting I had with the MPs, I concluded actually with concrete commitments, and I asked them to commit. So I'm going to say it the same way. Members of the Parliament, I need you to commit to the following 4 points. 1, use your voice and stand on the right side by calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and an end to the Israel's siege. 2, advocate for the reinstatement of funding to UNRWA and cease UK exports of weapons to Israel. 3, please sign the early day motion 377, which is the International Court of Justice ruling on Gaza and the UK's duty under the Genocide Convention. The link has been provided to all the MPs via this letter, but they have received this link actually from other ways, even internally. And 4, attend a parliamentary roundtable discussion about suspending arms exports to Israel on Tuesday, the 30th of April from 5 to 6 in Committee Room number 7, hosted by Brendan O'Hara, the MP. Esteemed members of the Parliament, you must open your eyes and you must act now. The urgency of this movement demands immediate and resolute action. A ceasefire is non-negotiable. It is imperative. It signifies the end of mass killings, the halting of a conflict that threatens to spiral into a global catastrophe. It is my duty, it is your duty, and is our collective duty to prevent further bloodshed and to quell the seeds of radicalization and future reprisals born from despair and abandonment. We really need to think about this. Let us remember that advocating for a ceasefire and an end to war should transcend political divisions. This is not a matter of Labour versus Conservatives or us versus us, or the football game that I was actually talking about. It is a matter of human compassion and moral responsibility. Witnessing a disproportionate call for a ceasefire from one side of the political spectrum is disheartening, while the other side remains silent. Either side should not use this for populistic purposes towards the upcoming elections that we're having in the UK. We must rise above partisan divides and campaigns and recognize that at our core, we are all human beings with a shared duty to protect life and uphold dignity. It is time for all politicians, regardless of party affiliation, to demonstrate maturity and foresight by prioritizing the well-being of humanity over political alliance. The UK Parliament must lead by example, fostering a culture of unity and collaboration rather than perpetuating divisive us versus them mentalities. Dear members of the Parliament, lastly, the world is watching, and history will hold us to account for our responses to this crisis. Each of us, not just yourselves, but each of us. Therefore, I implore you, act now. Stand on the right side of history. We cannot live a peaceful life knowing that we have been passive bystanders facing injustice and suffering. We must be on the same page, on the right side of justice, and stand together to show our unequivocal commitment to peace, justice, and the fundamental rights of all humanity. Every minute of hesitation or indifference equates to another child's heart ceasing to beat. Is that what we stand for? And thank you very much.
Wow, very good. Very powerful words. Let's hope it makes a difference. I mean, so when you went to Parliament, you bumped into Jeremy Corbyn, of all people.
Yes.
I saw him at one of the protests as well. And you managed to get a few words with him, right?
Yes, so I met quite a few MPs, obviously as well my MP. And yes, Jeremy Corbyn was there. And I was determined, indeed, to hold him. I wanted to get a short statement from him. Mm-hmm. I know, obviously, how things are going on for him as an ex-political leader. He's still a leader in some other ways, but obviously he's no longer representing the Labour Party. And I wanted to speak with him. I wanted to get a statement from him. I wanted him to address the Prime Minister. I wanted him to address the other members of the Parliament, both from the Labour and the Conservative Party. And I wanted him as well, lastly, but not least important, to address Israel and the Israeli people.
And we've got a little clip of that, so check it out. Have a look at this.
Hello, good afternoon, or thank you for being us. I just wanted to ask you very briefly what your opinion is, and I think I need to raise my voice, what your opinion is about the parties, the Conservatives and the Labour Party, some of them not voting for generic ceasefire. What is the explanation to your opinion?
I think it's disgraceful. I don't have a simple explanation as to why people vote the way they do. To me, it's a no-brainer. A ceasefire is absolutely essential. 33,000 people have already died. At least 11,000 slaves are children. There is almost an Operation Zero going on by the Israeli forces in Gaza. And the mental health of those that have survived, which is seriously impaired for the future. There is a sort of survivor's guilt at it. So we have to put pressure on people. Now, where's the pressure coming from? Yes, there is some public pressure. There was also an awful lot of other pressure from those that want to sell arms to Israel, those that are not want peace, and those that might see beyond the media and recognise that the fundamental causes of this are actually the occupation.
So what do you think is making those people not see beyond a ceasefire?
A lot of lobbying is going on, a lot of pressure is going on, and this has affected a lot of MPs' judgments, and a failure to appreciate an occupation of one country by another is wrong in many circumstances. It's wrong for Russia to try and occupy Ukraine. It's wrong for Israel to occupy Gaza.
What message would you send to everybody listening to
anyone listening to this? Think for a moment how you would feel if your community had been bombed, if your children had been killed, if your children had survived and in danger of dying from cholera or other diseases, or from hunger and from thirst. That's what's happening before our very eyes, live on television in Gaza. Let's speak up for a ceasefire now.
What message would you send to the Prime Minister?
Listen to the voices of people. Listen to the voices of Palestinian people and act accordingly. Stop arming Israel and start supporting people of Palestine who want to live in peace, just like everybody else in the region does. This is not a religious dispute, this is a dispute about occupation of the territory.
Lastly, Mr. Bobby, what message would you send to Israel?
Think of your own lives and think of how you live your own lives. And I support those people in Israel that have spoken out against the occupation and spoken out for peace and for an existence where people can actually live together. At the end of the day, all the people of the region need to be able to live together.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bobby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was interesting to hear Jeremy there. Good job getting hold of him, though, holding him accountable, getting him to actually say what his thoughts were.
Yeah.
So I guess, the point of this, I've obviously got a little platform. It's not huge, but I've got a few followers. And, my followers kind of know my opinions about this topic. But I thought I'd use it as an opportunity to get some other voices out there, such as your own. So what would you say to people who want to try to make a difference? And actually, like you said, history's going to hold us all accountable, right? Which side of it do you want to be on? What would you say to the people?
I will say what we are doing right now here, we are having kind of like a podcast, right? And many people nowadays are having podcasts, and then social media is out there available for everyone. Whilst many young people are going out of the way, universities, and they're protesting, they're going now to march and so forth. And that's commendable, of course. We need more people. We need everybody to be on the right side, as you very well said. And the right side is a ceasefire. It's an end to aggression, to the aggression. We need Palestine to become a sovereign state. And we need Hamas as well to release the hostages. They need to go back to their families. But this cannot escalate any further. So each of us, we have the duty as civilians, as voters, we have the duty to actually lobby. We have the duty to become, each of us, human rights advocates. And we can use our platforms, we can use our social media to call for a ceasefire, to speak up. And we should not be afraid of being, any sort of retaliation from our employers. It cannot be like that, because we shouldn't be taking sides. This is the point that I need to make, and it's the point that we all need to make. This is not a football match. It's not an election where we vote for Labour or Conservatives. This is humanity at its very core that is in absolute threat and danger. So we need to become one.
That's right. At the end of the day, we are all human. And it's like, from a human perspective, deep down, surely we all know what the right thing is to do.
Indeed.
Right? All right, well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's okay.
The best.
I'm sure we've got lots to talk about in the future too.
I'm sure. The best.